Everything Jesus said was true, but when He had to start it by saying, I'm telling you the truth, I'm telling you the truth, it was because He was about to say something that was so astounding, so hard to believe, that they would have thought, surely I misunderstood this. He couldn't mean what He said. So He started by saying, truly, truly, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believes on me, well, I believe on Him. He says, he that believes on me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. And I remember reading that. I've read that many times, but I remember back in the 80s reading that and just, putting the Bible down and thinking about it. Meditating is what I was doing. And I was saying, Father, I believe on you, but I haven't seen the dead raised. I hadn't seen the blind eyes open. I hadn't seen all of these things happen. And so something's wrong. And I started saying, I believe. I'm going to start believing to see the dead raised. That's what I focused on. And I took every scripture in the Bible where a person was raised from the dead, or where it prophesied us raising people from the dead, like Matthew chapter 10, verse 8. And I took those verses and I wrote them out longhand. And then I studied them. And I saw, like when John chapter 11, when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, I didn't just read that story, but I read it, and then I'd close my Bible and I'd sit there with my eyes closed and just try and see this in my heart. I tried to imagine what it would have been like with Mary and Martha sitting there crying, with the disciples thinking that this is a hopeless situation, dozens of people around that were wondering why He didn't come. And I would just meditate on this until I would see all of these things. And then I would see Jesus having them roll the stone away, and then with a loud voice saying, Lazarus, come forth. I also took the example where Elijah, laid on top of the boy and put his hands on his hands and his feet on his feet and his mouth on his mouth and laid there. And then he prayed over him and got up and walked and came back, and he waxed warm, and finally the boy was raised from the dead. I saw those things until I could get a picture of what it must have been like for them to do it. And then I started not only focusing on Jesus raising Lazarus and, Elijah raising the boy from the dead, but I started seeing myself do it, because He said I would do the same works that He did. And so I started seeing myself stand in front of a tomb and command somebody who had been dead for 4 days to come back to life. You know what that is? That's imagination. That's not fantasy, because it's based on Scripture. It's based on a promise that God gave us. And I started doing these things. I would lay on a bed and act like I was doing what Elijah did. I was imagining. And I got to where I was focused on this so much that actually during my dreams at night, I would raise 10 or 15 people from the dead every single night. I'd dream about it. I was just so focused on it that I was dreaming about it. I was meditating on it. That's what it says. You're blessed when you meditate in it day and night, and to meditate means to imagine. So I started imagining these things being real. And it wasn't long after that until a man died in one of my services. And you know what? Because I had been imagining, because I'd been there in my mind, because I had seen myself doing it, I spoke to this man, and this man came back to life, and he was raised from the dead. And then it was, 15 years later or something, and I had seen a couple of other people miraculously raised up. People that I'd ministered to had raised other people from the dead. But I got to thinking I hadn't seen this in a long time. And so I started the process all over again. I just started studying about raising people from the dead. And I took those scriptures and I meditated on it until I could see it. I could picture it. And then I started picturing myself doing it. And then I meditated on it so much that at night I would dream about raising people from the dead. And it wasn't long after that, in 2001, I think it was, that I saw my son raised from the dead, who had been dead for 4 or 5 hours, was in a morgue, pronounced dead, toe tag on, stripped naked. And I saw him raised from the dead with no brain damage. Those things aren't coincidental. You have to do this in advance. You can't just be out here goofing off and not seeking God and not studying the Word and not doing all of these things, and then some crisis hits and boom, all of a sudden you just see the miraculous power of God work. No, you have to prepare your heart. You have to be ready in advance.